thinking about solitary confinement, whether it is voluntary or involuntary, how that plays a role in our mental state. All right, so tonight I wanted to do a more feminist critique using two texts. The first one is going to be The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and then the second one is a more contemporary novel called The Vegetarian by South Korean author Kang. The Yellow Wallpaper is a pretty pivotal feminist writing, and it was published in 1892. It's also public domain at this point, so I will link it down below in my description box for anyone who would be interested in reading it. The background is that it is actually semi-autobiographical. It's about this woman whose husband believes that she's going through depression or she's not herself anymore, and the husband decides to put her by herself in a room, basically forces her to stay there until she's better. So Charlotte Perkins Gilman herself, she claims that the short story was inspired by her visits to this physician during a time when she was going through postpartum depression. Dr. Wire Mitchell, he was famous for prescribing this rest cure to females at the time, particularly those who were going through depression or through mental health struggles. I mean, I doubt that they even really knew what mental health was during that time, but essentially the cure, or what he claims to be a cure, was isolation, confinement to bed, dieting, electrotherapy, and massage. And also there was a restriction of less than 2 hours of mental stimulation per day. And this obviously didn't do much for females who went under this, and the Yellow Wallpaper was a direct response to this quote-unquote cure. So it was a very interesting way to see how fiction plays a role in its time period. Like, I think we look back at a lot of these texts, especially those that are published before the 20th century, and think that they are primarily just dystopian or utopic fictions, but in The Yellow Wallpaper, it's strikingly about a very real and contemporary time and moment. Not only does The Yellow Wallpaper play a role during the late 19th century, it also plays a role in today's society, I would say. Thinking about solitary confinement, whether it is voluntary or involuntary, how that plays a role in our mental state, right? So for the narrator in The Yellow Wallpaper, the woman was confined forcibly. It was out of her control when her husband basically closed the door and put her in that room. For us, right, when we're living under this prolonged state of quarantine, we have decided as a society to confine ourselves. And while this is more of a voluntary confinement, it does have effects. And I think the effects are still playing out as we speak. Not only is it like financial burdens or just like social burdens, it is very much like also invisible, just like a lot of the psychological and horrific states that the narrator herself goes through in The Yellow Wallpaper. So now as we transition into the novel The Vegetarian by Kang. Alright, I need to take off these glasses. Alright, because the ring light is reflecting on it. The Vegetarian was first published in South Korean in 2007, and then it was translated into English more recently in 2015. Since then, it's been translated into more than 13 languages, and has won multiple international awards. I think back in like 2013 or 2016, given a prestigious literary prize in the US as well. So it's really a beautiful work of fiction, but also I think does a lot for us if we look at some similarities, and especially in terms of like confinement. What's interesting about this novel is that Hong Kong decides to separate it into 3 sections, and each section is narrated by a different character. However, there's no section that is narrated by the main character herself. For example, the first section is narrated by the character's husband, the second one is narrated by the character's brother-in-law, and then the third and final segment is narrated by her sister. So I think the format itself goes to show how the main character is not given a voice. She's silenced even though she is the main subject. It's also a novel that shows the psychological downfall of the main character. It actually does it in a very similar way as the Yellow Wallpaper. In the very first segment, where it's narrated by the husband notices that his wife has become a little less docile than he prefers, I would say. She's decided to be vegetarian. She talks about all of the meat products in their refrigerator, and during a family dinner, she refuses to eat. And the refusal was a way for her to speak, and it was a way for her to protest in her current state. Yeah, I don't want to reveal too much, but she basically not only becomes adamantly vegetarian, but she, in a way, becomes vegetation. I think this novel is a great way to see like what confinement means in a contemporary sense, which is jarringly similar to the Yellow Wallpaper, even though these 2 novels stretch like almost 1.5 decades. Yeah, so I hope that this video inspired you again to pick up a book, and please follow me in my social medias that will follow immediately after, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. I can never do this. Peace out.